Hi, and welcome to the NVR podcast, number 6. I'm Rachael Aylmer.
And I'm Peter Jakob.
And today we're going to be talking about the fear of the announcement. Dun, dun, dun.
Okay. Yeah, I was really interested in you suggesting that we talk about that topic, and just curious to hear what inspired that.
Just this minute finished supervision with 2 of our esteemed colleagues who are delivering for the first time, some online parent group work. And the main topic of our supervision was the delay of preparing the parents for the delivery of an announcement, or even, the start of writing one. And so we just sat for a long time, actually exploring with them what was the delay in their own hesitations, let's say. Well,
I was just thinking, Rachael, for the benefit of those listeners who are not that familiar with NVR, should we very briefly just explain what an announcement is?
Yeah.
So an announcement is something we often, if not usually, do in the NVR process. We support parents to make an announcement to their child that the parents, will respond differently from now on. The announcement also includes some words about how they love and appreciate their child. It also includes a positive vision for the future. It also spells out what the problem is and that there are certain and very few behaviors the parents will no longer accept. And it's written in the first person plural. We will do this. We will do that. It may also include the parents' commitment to change if they themselves in the past have shown escalation or other behaviors that they are not comfortable with and that were possibly troubling or harmful to the child.
Beautifully put. Yeah. So there was some hesitation from the practitioners who are facilitating the group about starting that process. And so we just spent some time questioning what that was about. And one of the facilitators had, declared that she wanted to get the group's kind of NVR announcement ready. And we talked about what that meant. What signs are we looking for to get them announcement ready? And how will we identify with those signs when we do see them? And many other things.
So what were the colleagues worried about?
I think as this conversation unfolded, hesitation about them getting it wrong, and I'm using inverted commas here, getting it wrong, and the responsibility that I think the facilitators felt if parents had gone away and not quite mastered the essence of what the announcement really means, and carrying it out in ways without, I think predominantly as well, their concerns were that it would be carried out incorrectly. It wouldn't be carried out with the essence that they had hoped, that real commitment, that commitment of drawing a line in the sand about, about making change. And I think that was their main concerns.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in my experience, it can be very helpful to take time to work on the preparation of the announcement, but I wouldn't delay starting work on the announcement. I wouldn't think of getting parents ready for the announcement. I would think of helping and working with parents to change certain attitudes, to build up their confidence, their resolve, in the process of preparing the announcement. So that's a very different tack. And I'm also wondering what getting it wrong means and what could be the worst case scenario if someone, quote unquote, if parents, quote unquote, got it wrong.
Yeah, if they got it wrong. I think that there was concerns that it would be quite damning to the child.
Okay.
Yeah, I recall a long time ago I was doing some foundation training in one part of the world, and after the announcement part of the training, one of the participants sort of put her hand up and said, "I can imagine that this would be so devastating if we got this wrong." And I just looked at her and said, "No, not really." She was quite amazed by my response.
I mean, I guess if the parents were to deliver an announcement that is damning, then that perhaps would reflect a belief on the part of people that they must blame the child in order to effect change. And that would, of course, be an unhelpful belief. And I guess that belief would be part of the helplessness of parents, because maybe if parents have believed we must blame the child in order to effect change, but we don't want to blame the child, that's not how we want to parent, so we won't say anything. And we'll just accept what the child does. So that could be part of the helplessness that parents experience. And I think the opportunity in working on the announcement, but doing that slowly, slowing ourselves down, slowing the parents down, with us, is to detect all those responses that the parents might show in an unreflected way that are not productive. And I think most importantly, for the parents to detect that in themselves. So rather than taking the position of being the judge of what's right in terms of the parents delivering the announcement, I would want the parents to be the judge of what's right. I would want the parents to be able to recognize what they might, in an unreflected way, be inclined to do that is counterproductive and that actually isn't in keeping with how they want to parent. So that they become empowered to make that decision for themselves. So I guess my position is then a very different one. Rather than feeling that it's my job to get parents to get it right, it would probably be my job to help parents get empowered to recognize how they can do it and how they want to do it in a way that's constructive.
I kind of said that, but not so beautifully. Yeah, that was kind of my response about coaching the parents. And in my experience, that when parents begin that process of drafting first copy of the announcement, that I tend to recognize a shift in the parents' position.
Well, can you describe that shift?
I think I don't know, and maybe it's just as more of a conviction, and it's more about making a conviction to this pledge.
That their conviction grows, that they can do this?
Yeah. And also the realization that they have the ability to change their story. They can identify with what's not helpful. And I think many parents, not all, of course, generally speaking, think that sometimes they forget that they can say enough. We're not living like this anymore, but we'll continue to love you and we will continue to care for you and we'll still be your mum and dad or your mum and mum, but we're not doing this anymore. And it will stop.
So the conviction that you see then growing in them is that they can communicate with both and.
Yeah.
We love you. We reconcile with you wherever possible. And we won't accept this or we won't accept that. There's been enough of that.
Yeah, and I was going to add the bit about some parents do include the apology, and the apology is that acknowledgement that, I haven't always got it right. And I think wonderful, refreshing position for parents to take, to have some ownership around when it hasn't always worked well. And what we do in life is we apologize and we can move on.
And, I think that's so important. I was thinking of what Uri Weinblatt says about regulating shame in the NVR process,
Yeah.
And Uri says that suppressed shame becomes toxic.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking how if the parent owns up in the announcement to what they've done that was wrong or that they're not happy with, it can be a sentence like, I've shouted at you in the past, or we've shouted at you in the past. We won't shout anymore. So it's owning up to what they've done and making a commitment to change it. How that can help the child regulate their shame. Because in a sense, the message the parents are giving is, it's okay to acknowledge what I've done wrong, and it's okay to start changing it. And I think that's very powerful in helping the child regulate their shame.
Yeah, and we're their role models, and they look up to us. I recall a parent I worked with on an announcement, and an adopted parent's one son, and after the announcement had been delivered to the child, young man, what we recognised almost immediately after, not only was there a reduction in violence directly towards the dad, but there was an increase in physical affection from son to father, because the father had made the apology of a time when he tried to protect his wife while his son was being hitting his wife. And the child had seen it as that dad had attacked him and hurt him. And dad used some language in the announcement to kind of to apologize for that time.
But what he had done that he feels wrong.
Yeah. And there was almost an immediate shift in the relationship. I mean, it didn't last forever. The boy, a couple of years later, behaviours crept back in and what have you. But in the moment afterwards, that there was a significant shift, but particularly with an increase of physical affection towards dad.
Yes, and that's something that that many people become aware of in the process, that actually you see changes in behavior which are not complete, which don't appear to be linked with a reduction of violence or aggression or destructive behavior. Those green shoots start emerging that show that, say, a young person is becoming more secure in their attachment, that some of the ruptures in the relationship are being repaired, even in the announcement. And I guess that accounts for the fact that, contrary to parents and often practitioners' beliefs, many young people either don't respond as negatively as they anticipate, or even respond positively to an announcement. Can we just bring our conversation back to the practitioners? Because I'm really interested in the practitioners' concerns about the parents getting it wrong. I guess that's one area. Another area that I've come across in supervision is practitioners' fear of the parents' fear. So that sometimes parents are afraid of delivering an announcement because they're rocking the boat. They're not, by making an announcement, however carefully formulated, you're not walking on eggshells anymore. You're saying it how it is. You're saying something that maybe your child, or part of what you're saying, maybe your child doesn't want to hear.
Mm.
So you're scared. You're scared your child might get aggressive. You're scared that your child might become verbally abusive, or that your child might diminish you by how they speak to you or respond. And then I sometimes feel that practitioners who are working with the parents are afraid that the parents could be afraid. Is that an observation you've made?
Yeah, not just in the supervision this morning with my colleagues, but definitely feedback in the foundation training that I've delivered from practitioners. The words fear of setting them up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I go back to my early days of learning and practicing NVR, and the fear of putting parents into an environment that perhaps may become hostile, taking on quite a big responsibility for that. So I know that my colleague in supervision this morning, I think that was her initial fear
Mm-hmm.
of perhaps putting the parents in an environment that could get messy. And my response is always that home life is already aggressive and violent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to create a new behaviour. These behaviours exist already. But actually, my experience as well of supporting parents and coaching parents to write and deliver an announcement is just so overwhelmingly positive.
Mm.
That parents become incredibly empowered, and they're almost rolling up their sleeves for that challenge. They want to take action, but taking action in this way that is non-violent and still holding the young person in mind, I think is just a beautiful example of how parents can begin to make that pledge. Yeah.
So your confidence has grown from experience. Of course,
Mm.
not every practitioner of NVR has that degree of experience. So they perhaps need to build that confidence in their own right. I'm thinking of the words that you just used, that they are afraid that they may be setting the parents up. And again, I think it's a question of how we look at our own position.
Mm.
Because it is for the parents to decide whether or not they will make an announcement, or when they will make an announcement, or how they will make an announcement. I would think that our position is much more that of a coach.
Yes.
So an athlete wants to, I don't know, ski down that slope, run those 500 meters, run the marathon. And as the coach, it's our job to support them in doing so and to find it in themselves how they do it best.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the parents who come to us who want to do something about the violence, about the aggression, about the self-harm, about the self-isolation, whatever the problem is. They want to do something about it. And then we propose various things that they may consider.
In
And
preparation, isn't it? It's that preparation. We're
yeah,
helping them
yeah.
prepare.
But of course, I think feeling helpless at the outset, parents don't believe that they could do anything like that.
Mm. Yeah.
And it brings me back to what Chaim Omer said. I think we spoke about it in a previous podcast, that the essence of becoming empowered as a parent, growing in confidence and moving forward and raising their presence with their child,
Mm.
lies in doing something they didn't believe they could do beforehand.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So perhaps unlike the Olympic skier, unlike the marathon runner, the parents don't have the confidence yet that they will be able to do it.
Mm.
And I was speaking to someone the other day, I can't, who uses a metaphor like being a guide over a wonky bridge.
Mm.
You know, the parents need to walk over this wonky bridge. It's not easy, you know.
Mm.
we to quote a book that was very popular in the 1970s, we can't promise them a rose garden. Yet they want to move forward. And moving forward is difficult. And it's our job to help them cross that wonky bridge. We're like a guide over the wonky bridge. Mm-hmm. And of course, we're worried as well. We don't want the bridge to collapse. We don't want them to fall off the bridge. So we must work with care. And I think that kind of brings us back to that consideration of working on the announcement very slowly as necessary, taking the time it requires so that the parents can prepare themselves in the best possible way.
Yeah, and that brings to mind as well, I was making notes when you were talking, and each outcome for each family is very different. I said to the guys in supervision this morning, I recall a dad who worked incredibly hard on writing his announcement, lots of tears and sweat went into it. And about a year later, I was at the start of running the Great Self Run, and I could hear someone shouting my name, through all these thousands of people. I turned around, and it was this dad who was also good in the race, and he shouted, "I've still got that announcement. It's in my wallet." And he never did give it to the child. He didn't never read it to the child, but he worked on it, and he wrote the words down, and he made a pledge and a commitment to those words, and never delivered it. Obviously my coaching was to deliver it, but he didn't want to, and he didn't feel it was right for him. But that was okay. So each outcome can be different.
And I love the idea that he kept it in his wallet, and how powerful that must have been for him, and so important that he told you at that race.
Yeah, here I am, and people ahead of him, and he saw the back of my head, decided to let me know.
I've worked sometimes with parents who've said, "Oh, well, I was all ready to do this to make this announcement, but then, there haven't been any problems for the last 2 weeks. So I wasn't sure. Do you think I should still make the announcement?" And they then often feel, well, it's not warranted because something has already changed. Something has already shifted. And I then just suggest keep it in your handbag. And I actually call it a handbag announcement.
A handbag announcement. I like that.
Okay. So should we sort of just reflect on our conversation a little bit?
Yeah. For me, I think is the shifts that as practitioners can fall into this belief that we must make parents, and we can't police things. We can't police how the announcements are going to turn out. And I, for one, have had my fair share of announcements not quite going according to plan, and it's really okay. It's really, really okay.
And I like that conclusion. Things are bound to go wrong.
Yeah.
If we don't take risks in our work with parents, and if parents don't take risks, relational risks, I'm not thinking of, increasing the risk of aggression or anything, but if we don't take relational risks, there won't be any change.
Yeah. And it's the change that matters. It's the change that empowers parents. And that's good. Thanks. Thanks for listening to the NVR podcast, the fortnightly one. And bye for now.
Bye.